Hello, welcome to that Millwall podcast. We have an episode this evening of The Inside Man with Adam from Norwich, who covers writes for the Pinkun paper. Adam, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, guys. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
No, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Looking forward to the game on Saturday. I think it should be a good one. And we're joined by a regular panelist with a nice tan as he's back off of his holiday. Ben, how are you?
It's a good, really strong golfer's tan, mate. White as anything body, red all around the sides. But yeah, no, really well, thanks. Looking forward to tonight's show.
Good. Good to have you back on. Obviously, after you've been away. So, of course, the Lions head into the next game and face tough opposition in Norwich. Obviously, Millwall sit fifth in the table, and Norwich currently sit 2 points behind us in seventh. Adam, I think it's safe to say that we're probably a lot of change since the last fixture. I was at Carrow Road, where you guys beat us 2-0, and I think it was quite comfortable. But obviously, you guys have had a change of manager, and a lot's changed since then. I'm assuming, and from what I read and see, for the positive, for the better.
Yeah, it was a very difficult 18 months under Dean Smith. He never really built a relationship with our fans, and that's always something that typically doesn't really end very well for Norwich City managers. The ones down the past that have failed to do that often get the sack very short after. And Dean Smith, that was his fate in the end. Norwich were losing games pretty poorly. There wasn't really a style of football and identity. We hadn't won a home game for about 4 months, which, Carrow Road was really a fortress in the Championship in previous seasons. So for that to be such a problem again, it was another big issue. And then obviously it came around to the Christmas time. We lost to Luton 2-1, and that was the one that saw Dean Smith sacked. And then there was kind of the optimism around the air a bit again about who we were going to appoint. And our sporting director, Stuart Webber's worked with David Wagner previously at Huddersfield and had lots of great success. And obviously Norwich had Daniel Farke, which is obviously sort of similarities in terms of both being German and similar sort of playing style. So I think there was probably an expectation that it was going to work. And the early signs will be quite positive. We picked up 16 points from available 24 under him. And it's kind of gone from a season where it looked like it was maybe petering out towards mid-table to a little bit more optimism about probably a playoff push now and a chance to sort of test ourselves against like the likes of you guys, where we can actually be competitive and feel fairly optimistic going into a game rather than very pessimistic, which was very much the case under Dean Smith.
And obviously from that fixture, Ben, from our point of view, I think at that point it was very early on in the season. Gary Rowett was playing obviously his preferred formation of 5 at the back. A lot's changed for the Lions since then as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, a lot for the better for us. Change of formation, changing fortunes. It certainly helped. I think what we spoke about last night on the Spaces, it's freed up the likes of Billy Mitchell to get on the ball more. I think we've seen Saville benefit from going into a 2 in midfield as well. And generally, we just look much more of a threat going forward now. But we still seem to be very strong defensively, despite giving obviously away a 2-goal lead the other night. But we won't go into that too much. But yeah, generally we still seem pretty solid at the back, and certainly now look much more of a threat going forward. If I remember, and just a shout out to our main man Vogie, did he hit the bar against Norwich with a decent effort in the reverse fixture?
I'll be honest with you. I remember bits of the game. I remember them for the wrong reasons. As I say, I travelled with a good friend of mine who is a Norwich fan, and the journey back wasn't particularly great. I remember more getting a lot of stick rather than anything else. But from what I remember, that to be honest with you, I think Fleming hadn't played. Norwich didn't really have to do an awful lot to beat us on the night. And it just sort of petered out into a comfortable 2-0 victory. So I'm not quite sure if he did. Adam, just to bring you back in, at the moment, Norwich going pretty well. I think it's 10 points from the last 5. I did read earlier on today that top scorer Josh Sargent might be missing the game on Saturday. But obviously, Teemu Pukki has come back. Is that a hindrance, not having Sargent? Is Pukki... obviously, from what we've seen previously, Pukki is a prolific striker at this level. But would their preference be to have Sargent over him, or
Yeah, they've sort of been switched around this season. I mean, Dean Smith kind of only operated with a one striker up front sort of formation, typically a 4-2-3-1. So Pookie often was kind of the sole striker, and Sargent was often shifted out to the wing, which is obviously not his preferred position. He would rather be centrally through the middle. But since Wagner's come in, he kind of likes to play with two strikers. So he's often utilised Pookie and Sargent in the same side. But Sargent's not really been the same player. He had like a really good sort of run of form just before the World Cup, and I think he'd scored about 9 goals or 10 goals by that point. But since the since the return after the World Cup, I think it's only 1 goal now. So he's maybe not been on the best of form. So probably not as big a blow as what it would have been previously. I think having Teemu Pukki back is arguably one of the sort of the more benefit in terms of that, because he's a player who knows where the back of the net is in the Championship. Maybe struggled a little bit this season compared to years gone by, but still, I think he's got 10 goals at this level, and he's had sort of spells out with injury as well. So still a pretty good return. And Saturday marks his 200th appearance in a Norwich City shirt, so quite a big milestone for him personally. So I'm sure he's going to be chomping at the bit to try and put one past Millwall, aside that he often does like a goal against, obviously.
And of course, coming down from the Premier League and a lot of anticipation, a lot of expectation on the shoulders of the Norwich players, probably the supporters expecting to be perhaps challenging for the top 2 at least. Obviously, that's gone a little bit against you in that sense, and obviously Burnley and Sheffield United appear to be in a quite a strong position. The playoffs, of course, you finish in the top 6. I think it's a successful season. Is the top 6? Would a top 6 finish be a success, or does it have to be promotion?
Yeah, I think if you'd have said at the start of the season anything but promotion would probably be deemed a failure. The hierarchy at the top of the club were very adamant that we got the tools and the squad available to bounce straight back to the Premier League and probably be better placed to compete up there with sort of a bit more financial power. We've just had sort of some recent investment from some American but sort of based owners, so they look like they're probably going to be taking the full share of the club as well, sort of in the sort of short to mid term. So that probably sort of sparked a little bit more optimism. But yeah, the season hasn't really panned out that way. I think now, if you'd probably say to me you'll be in the top 6, I'll probably take that, even if it isn't promotion back to the Premier League. I think that where we were probably at the halfway stage, it looked like probably more of a mid-table finish, and that was probably going to be deemed a massive failure. So to get into the top 6 under David Wagner, sort of early doors, would be an achievement, and then he'd probably have the summer then to rebuild, because we've got a lot of players out of contract. So it's going to be a massive rebuild job, and then go again next season, really.
And Ben, the Lions are, I believe it's 8 points from the last 5, which, you say 8 points from 15, it doesn't sound as good. But when you factor in that we've had to play Burnley and Sheffield United and taken 4 points off of those, we're probably in as good a form as we've been in for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Nail on the head there, Stephen. I think I looked at the run of fixtures, certainly against Sheffield United, Burnley, I would have taken a point. Probably me just being my pessimistic self more than anything else. But they're tough fixtures, right? They are too. I think Stephen Warnock said that Burnley are probably the best team he's seen in the Championship. So, yeah, I think we've done really well in recent weeks. I think obviously being at home is a massive advantage to us. I think it's going to be another tough game Saturday. It's just been a real tough run of games for us, and I've been really impressed in terms of how we've handled it. Given the size of our squad, we are thin on the ground. I think we saw that again this week. But yeah, just been really impressed at how we've dug in and just kept us in and around the playoffs. I thought if we could just hang on to the coattails throughout this period, then I'd be really happy. The fact that we're still in there, still technically in our hands, and we've got the likes of Norwich who are chasing us. Yeah, just been super impressed with the squad and how we've handled it, really. So, yeah, another big game Saturday, as I've said. But yeah, been a real tough run of games.
And Ben, sticking with you, I'm going to ask you about our opponents on Saturday, Norwich. Have you been surprised at the season that they've been having? Is it a case of perhaps a little bit of expecting to be in the, challenging for the top 2, and perhaps found it a little bit more challenging, or perhaps the World Cup hasn't done them and lots of other clubs any other favours?
Yeah, I mean, I think naturally when Norwich do just yo-yo between the Premier League and the Championship, we all just automatically think the next season they're going to nearly walk the league again, or they're certainly going to be in the top two. I actually really like Dean Smith, and I thought he'd eventually get it right for Norwich. But it's interesting what Adam says there. He just never really got an identity or really got it going. But yeah, I really liked him. So I thought at some point they would just pick up and get up there. Surprised where they are? Yeah, I think so. I think more than anything else, I was just having a look at the league table then whilst you guys were chatting, and they've lost 12 games this year. And I think probably that's quite a lot for them. I'd imagine in all of their promotion pushes in the last few years, they probably wouldn't have lost that many games in total. So they've obviously, lost more games than they would have liked. I'm not surprised now they're climbing back up the table. Again, just looking through the squad, it's just that lower Premier League sort of talent they've got in there, right? So, I'm surprised they're not up within the automatic push. But as I said, if things weren't clicking with Dean Smith, then it's always a tough league to get out of, isn't it? So certainly when things aren't going well. So, I am surprised that they weren't knocking on the door for automatic promotion. But I think that I'd imagine they're going to be one of our main competition come the end of the season for that 4th, 5th, or 6th spot in the playoffs.
And Adam, obviously from a Norwich perspective, have you been surprised with the form of Millwall, the fact that this year we seem to be a little bit more consistent and at the moment occupying the playoffs? I think there's a few people out there that have potentially had us down as dark horses, which we have been for a number of seasons, but it's never quite materialised. Is there any sort of surprise that we're doing as well as we are from a Norwich point of view?
Yeah, I mean, early doors in the season when we played you guys, I was probably not as impressed as what I was hoping to be. I mean, I think you'd won a few games previously. I think it was a late win at Swansea, wasn't it? Or a late point you got there. And I thought maybe that was going to be a benchmark for where you guys were going to be, probably more of a mid-table outfit. But being impressed with what Gary Rowett's done with you guys since his arrival in 2019, it feels like you've sort of been gradually building and you're now at a point where you can go and compete with sort of, the top teams in this division, despite the fact, financially are probably, not in the same sort of category in terms of like us or the Burnleys or Sheffield Uniteds of the Championship world. So definitely doing well to be punching above your weight. And I mean, to get into the playoff mix, obviously, as we all know, it's a massive lottery and just a case of who turns up on the day. So if you can keep yourselves in there, then, you give yourselves a massive fighting chance to get to the Premier League. And once you get up there, you turn your fortunes round. And then even if you come straight back down, you then sort of become one of the teams in the Championship to look out for. And you've got the financial power, I suppose, a little bit more like what us guys have got. We're not really necessarily a sort of rich club in terms of ownership, but a lot of our money's been generated by just getting to the Premier League. So it certainly feels that if you guys could, achieve that, then you've definitely got a relatively good future ahead of you under Gary Rowett.
And a question for you both. I will start again with you, Adam. What have you made of the Championship overall? I think there's a lot been made that perhaps the quality outside of Burnley is perhaps less than what it has been in other seasons. Do you share that opinion? Is it a case of that perhaps financial fair play is now evening up the second tier, or do you think there perhaps is other influences at play?
Yeah, I think there's probably a mix of things. I mean, Norwich and Watford have both been very, very poor, which you probably expected both of those to be sort of in the top two mix. Companies just obviously got Burnley playing a really good brand of football, and they've been a class above, and their recruitment's been, second to none in this division. Probably expected Sheffield United to be where they are, but I think the rest of the league is very open, which in some ways is what you want as a fan, probably as a neutral fan, or certainly Championship fans, to have a league where anyone can go up or anyone can get into the playoffs. So that's probably better than sort of years gone by where you've had sort of certain teams where you just kind of nail them on to make the playoffs, and that typically comes true. There's not really sort of what I call big teams in this league either. You look back sort of years gone by, Aston Villa, Newcastle, Leeds, I could go on, some really, really big clubs that, probably expected to be in the top six, where this season, if you look down the league, there's still some big teams in there, but probably not to the caliber of those. So that obviously helps in making it a much more level playing field. And I think sort of the recruitment element now in these clubs. You know, they've got scouts across the world and they're picking out gems. I mean, like you guys with Fleming, you know, he's a superb talent and probably not sort of someone that, you know, we didn't expect to do as well as he has done. So I think that probably is also a factor in it. And yeah, it certainly makes it more of an enjoyable watch from a further afield.
And Ben, obviously, I think Millwall are perhaps a club. We perhaps have to be a little bit honest with ourselves and say that we are perhaps benefiting, that the quality of the league is perhaps not where it was maybe 2-3 years ago. But you still have to put in the hard yards. You still have to make sure that you pick up the results to put you in that position. Is it a surprise that we're perhaps doing as well as we are and the league is maybe a little bit more competitive?
Yeah, I think it is a really level playing field this year, or certainly seems like it. And again, not to dwell on our last result, but I think there was a lot of disappointment around the Luton game, the fact that we didn't obviously go on to win it. But I think now we just look at any result away from home. And if you avoid defeat, I think it's a good result because it's always going to keep you in there, certainly for us now at the stage of the season that we're at. But generally, I think the level of quality, I mean, you look at the likes of Swansea down in 15th, they're a decent side. They're really struggling this season. It is just, I think it was interesting that Adam said we haven't got a standout team in the league this year in terms of a Newcastle or someone like that, or someone that's really blowing it away. But we've got a Burnley in there that, again, as Adam touched upon, the recruitment and what companies doing there is just phenomenal. And it looks like they could turn out to be one of the better teams that we've seen in the Championship or had in the Championship in recent years. Am I surprised we're in the mix? Absolutely. I always am, because I'm very realistic in understanding our budget against other teams in the league, and just looking again at the teams around us. I'd imagine, take Luton out of the mix, we would have probably a quarter of their wage budget, their transfer budget, etc. So I'm always surprised when we're mixing it at that top end of the league. Look, it's obviously great for us, and again, as Adam touched on, if we can just somehow manage to hang on into playoffs and somehow do the unthinkable, then it will change the fortunes of the club moving forward, hopefully, and we can look at increasing those sorts of budgets. But yeah, I think generally this year it is quite a level playing field in the league, probably just taking out Burnley and Sheffield United, which makes our two results in recent weeks even more impressive.
Before I bring it back to the game on Saturday, I'm going to put you both on the spot. Adam, you're going to get a little bit more time to think about this, so that might benefit you. So Ben, I'm going to start with you. 12 games to go for the majority of the teams. I think West Brom might have 13. I think they've got a game in hand out of all the sides that are going for the top 6. I think they're the only one that still now have a game in hand. Give me 4 teams that are making the playoffs.
Oh, you have put me on the spot. Luckily, I've got the league table up next to me here. I'm going to say Middlesbrough, Millwall, Norwich, and Watford.
Adam, your 4?
Yeah, I'd agree with Middlesbrough, Norwich and Millwall, but I think I'll probably just pit West Brom in there. I think they'll have a bit of a late surge, and yeah, I can see the likes of Watford falling away a little bit. So yeah, I think that'll be my 4.
Could I just ask a question back to Adam?
Yeah, go for it.
If we both made the playoffs, do you think Norwich fans would be happy to play Millwall in the playoffs, or would you look at that and go, that's a bit of a tough tie?
Yeah, I think I'd fancy us more against you guys in the semis over 2 games. I think probably we just about have enough squad quality, probably in terms of, you know, just enough to pip you guys over 2 games. But certainly as a 1-game shootout at Wembley, if we would both make it, then yeah, I'd certainly be taking, you know, fearing the worst. I think, you know, anyone can rock up to a final and do a job on any side. So yeah, probably would fancy us more against you in the semis rather than the final.
Stephen, what do you reckon? Would you take Norwich if we got there? Taking your personal...
I can't do that. If I've already said for the benefit of the viewers and listeners at home, a very good friend of mine is a Norwich fan, and he'll be travelling to the game. He is going to be in the weigh-in on Saturday, and we keep talking about the possibility of us playing each other in the playoffs, whether it be the semi-final or the final. Norwich are the one team I would want to avoid, purely because of my personal feelings towards it, because I don't think I could face having to go down a pub with mate over the summer if Norwich were to beat us. In a footballing term, taking that away, I think Norwich are a side that perhaps haven't hit the heights this year that they would like. The quality of their squad is obviously very, very good. They've got some very good players, and I think I actually agree. But from a Millwall perspective, I would rather play Norwich in a one-off game in the final than I would over 2 legs. Our record at Carrow Road is absolutely awful, and if you have to go there and get any form of result, I don't think I'd be confident.
It's interesting that, because I think I'd be the other way round, just purely because I know what it'd be like at the Den in a home leg of a playoff. And if we were, say, we finished 4th and Norwich finished 5th, I'd like to think that second leg at home, if we could just hang on in there, that would be a massive advantage. I think that is just generally in the playoffs for us, and generally speaking now, whoever we play, I don't think anyone's going to relish that trip in the playoffs coming to us at some point, whether it is first or second. I hope we can get that advantage. So that looks like we're going to have to finish 4th. So I don't think we're going to finish 3rd. So I would like that advantage to be second and us to just hang on, as I say, in there in that first leg, whoever we play against, because I think, yeah, that second leg at home, we'd have the place absolutely rocking.
Realistically, I think, and this is just my personal opinion, I think us and Norwich, if we're going to make the playoffs, which I'll put my neck out, I think it will be Middlesbrough, Norwich, Millwall, and I think I actually am going to go with West Brom as well. I think they might just do it. I think they might just sneak in there. But I think for Millwall and Norwich, I think the highest place, realistically, I think that for us to finish, I don't think we'll finish 3rd or 4th, which would mean we would have the home leg at the first leg at the Den, which I agree, not many teams are going to want to come to the Den and in that first leg. But that's why I think where Norwich are concerned, I would rather play them away from home first. But I don't think we're going to get that luxury. But who knows? I mean, the Championship's crazy this year. You don't really know. It could a team could sort of run together like Coventry and sneak in. And I think as Adam touched on earlier, the fact of the matter is the Championship is, for a neutral, a fantastic league to watch. You never know who's going to really pick up results, and I think that's why it's exciting. I think that's why it's growing and in popularity. Excuse me. Bringing it back to the game on Saturday, it's obviously a big game. It's 2 clubs going for the playoffs. I think we're looking at a sellout. I believe I'm under the impression that the Norwich end has sold out. I think all the tickets have been bought, and I believe the Millwall home ends are very close to being a sellout. So it should be a good atmosphere. Adam, obviously with Josh Sargent perhaps missing the game, we've already touched on Timo Pukki. Is there anybody else that the Lions will need to sort of keep an eye on? Any sort of standout performers at the moment?
Yeah, I think Gabriel Sara is probably the man to look out for in midfield. We spent, it was about £6 million plus plenty of add-ons on the Brazilian midfielder. They brought him in from Sao Paulo, very young player, just 23 still. It sort of took him a little bit of time to adapt to the league. He also was injured towards the latter stages of last year in Brazil, so he didn't really hit the ground running early doors, but certainly under David Wagner himself and Kenny McLean as sort of the double in the midfield have really struck a great partnership. He's been scoring some goals in recent home games and some really nice goals too from distance. He's technically a very good midfielder. He's very good on the ball. He's got very good vision in terms of passing. So he's kind of been the spine of the team at the moment, and he's the man who sort of helps us build up in terms of getting forwards, and that kind of helps us in terms of our wide men. Onel Hernandez is a player that on his day can terrorise fullbacks very quick. Probably the criticism is his final stuff, sort of end product in the final third has sometimes been lacking, but he's certainly improving on that under David Wagner. So I'd say Gabriel Sara is probably the main man to look out for. But yeah, Kenny McLean, Onel Hernandez and Marquinhos as well, who we've just brought in on loan from Arsenal. He scored and got an assist on his debut last weekend, and I'd imagine he'll be retaining his place on Saturday. So he's someone as well, very young, very quick, and again, someone to look out for in terms of your fullbacks.
And outside of obviously Sargent's injury, is there any other injury doubts in the squad? How are you guys looking at the moment?
Yeah, we've got a fairly fully fit squad. There's a few sort of more longer term injuries. A young player, Jonathan Rowe, who sort of had high expectations at the start of the season. He's still out injured at the moment. Kieran Dowell's probably the really, really big blow. We lost him. Under David Wagner, he scored, I think it's 5 goals or 4 goals and sort of numerous assists. And he kind of been the key creator. Unfortunately, he picked up an injury that's now going to rule him out probably until sort of the end of or mid-April time. So that's most of the run-in now, which is a huge blow for us. But thankfully, we've got sort of, as a side in the Championship, we are well stocked in terms of quality players in the ranks that can come in and replace him. So that's another key blow. But the same with Isaac Hayden, another one we brought in the summer, a well sort of rounded Premier League Championship midfielder. Unfortunately, we've not seen a lot of him due to injuries. So that's one that, unfortunately, we've not seen a lot of him. So it's hard to really take. But definitely a player that I think if we'd have had available could have made an impact this season.
It's always what you really want to hear, isn't it? The opposition coming on saying we're just stacked with Premier League quality all over the pitch. Doesn't matter who's injured, doesn't matter. Brilliant. Really looking forward to Saturday now. Cheers, Adam.
I was hoping when I asked that question about the fitness of the squad that you might have said, Adam, oh no, there's 3 or 4 missing, and we're missing this player and missing this player. So,
so was I.
Ben, for obviously any of our friends from Norwich that perhaps are listening to the show when this does go out, it's not looking good in the sense of the injury front at the moment, is it, for the Lions? We're in a position where we're missing a few, and the numbers are kind of adding up a little bit, aren't they?
They are. They're slowly creeping up. I think, again, not to labour a point too much, but we've had a really tough 4 games. 5th with Saturday. We looked leggy at Stoke. We looked leggy against Luton. I think it is just starting to catch up with us. The injury list is ever growing. The guys we got in January and Watmore and Burke, they look like they've got some sort of niggles, and I think that was one of the concerns when we brought those guys in, that they hadn't played a huge amount of football. We're now asking them to pretty much play Saturday, Tuesday. They've come in and played a couple of games, and yeah, they don't look like they're fit. I think the biggest miss, and we know your main man here, Stephen, George Saville, I'm just hoping he's back Saturday. I think we really missed him Tuesday night. Yep. Might be a bit of a blessing that he did just miss out on the squad, but and he was a bit tired. Hopefully it is just that. But yeah, look, we know we're thin on the ground. The guys are doing a great job at the minute. But yeah, that injury list is slowly starting to mount, and I think it is just purely because of the hectic schedule that we've had.
And again, for the benefit, obviously, for Norwich fans that are listening to the show, the obvious answer to this question is Ian Fleming come in and playing absolutely fantastic at the moment. Who else would you say in a Millwall shirt at the moment that would be one for those guys to look out for?
Yeah, well, it was interesting, Adam, just saying about Hernandez. I actually just looked at where he played against us last time, and I'm hoping it is down the left-hand side. And we have got Danny Mack there, because I think he's been our most improved player since Christmas, I'd say. I called out Billy Mitchell on the show a few weeks back. He would be my man to look out for. He's probably our most improved player this season, but unfortunately he's going to be out with an injury. But Danny Mack's just been absolutely brilliant, puts in a shift week in, week out. He's going to wind a few of your lads up, I'd imagine, Adam. And if it is a nippy winger down the left-hand side, I'd imagine he's going to have a tackle or two to deal with, and some antics to get in his face. But yeah, Danny Mack's been brilliant. I thought he was superb again Tuesday night. Again, was just a real pain in the arse for Luton. I say it's disappointing that the likes of Billy Mitchell do miss out on a game like this, because I think he'd really help us. But yeah, Danny Mack would be my main man. And of course, it would be unfair of me not to call out Bradders, because again, he's put in a real shift over the last 4 or 5 games, and he's a very streaky forward. I've mentioned it before. Hopefully he can carry his goal scoring form into Saturday. But yeah, if I was picking out 2, it would be Bradders and Danny Mack. Most people probably know about Bradshaw, obviously been in the league for a while and been around the block with Barnsley, etc. But Danny Mack's a youth prospect of ours who's really improved this year.
And I'm going to again put you both on the spot. Adam, you can go first this time. So Ben, you get a little bit more time to have a little bit of a think about this. Adam, how do you think the game's going to go on Saturday? And are you going? And can I have a prediction from you?
Yeah, I'm making the trip down to London tomorrow night. I've got a good friend of mine from university, so going to visit him tomorrow evening, and then I'm in the press box on Saturday covering it for us. So really looking forward to it. It's probably kind of a bit of a statement game for us. Our recent games have kind of been against teams towards the bottom of the division, so the positive sort of form and the upturn of form maybe skewed a little bit. I mean, we have been averaging 2 points per game under David Wagner, but as I kind of already stated, other than Burnley, we've not really played a a tough opposition yet. So the first chance to really put our wits against a sort of fellow playoff contender feels like a big opportunity. I think there's only one defeat in 11 games against you guys for us, so that's a record that I think we'd like to try and maintain. Obviously, you guys not lost a home game as well since September, so someone's got something to lose on Saturday. I think we're bottom as well of the sort of all the teams in the top 10 that have faced each other. I think we're bottom of that table. We've only won against two of them. One of them obviously is you guys, and then Sunderland's the other one. And strangely enough, they are our next two games. So it feels like our season probably hinges a little bit on the next two games. If we can kind of come unscathed and ideally pick up 4 points, I'd be relatively happy with that. And I think on our preview show earlier on today, me and my colleague both said draw. So I'm going to go for a 1-1, and I'll probably take it as long as we then go back to Carrow Road and beat Sunderland next Sunday on Sky. Then that would be a pretty good return. So yeah, 1-1 is my prediction.
And before I come on to you, Ben, I think if you're near the bottom of that form list against sides in the top 10, I don't think we're much too far off of you, because our record against the sides, I think apart from Watford, who we've beat twice, and I think Middlesbrough,
Sheffield United.
And Sheffield United, yeah, that we've won a few, but our record against the teams around us, I think they showed a graphic on Sky the other night against the Luton game, and it's not great. So it's two sides who have found themselves in a really strong position, but don't seem to be beating the teams around them. Sometimes, you have to beat. You can only beat what's in front of you, and if you're beating the teams at the bottom of the league, you're still going to give yourself a chance. But I do think it'll be a tight game. Ben, coming to you, if you say that Millwall are going to lose, I don't think I'm ever going to do a show with you again. How do you think the game's going to go on Saturday? And can I get a prediction from you, please?
Do you know what? I don't think I've ever said that. I think I've just always said a pessimistic 1-1 draw. Look, we keep talking about this, but it's kind of the last game in a run of really tough fixtures for us. I'm just hoping we can have one more big push Saturday. I think it's, again, a really massive game for us in terms of just keeping Norwich at arm's length in terms of the playoff push. I would absolutely take a point now, Adam. If you want to take that 1-1 draw, not kick a ball, I'm more than happy with that. I would, absolutely take it. Our record against you guys is nothing short of appalling. And as I said, we looked leggy the last two games. The injuries are now starting to catch up. That being said, we are getting a couple back. Hutch, hopefully, will be back. Leonard's first full game Tuesday night for a long time. So we are getting a couple back as well. But yeah, the squad's looking a bit thin. We've got an easier couple of fixtures now. Not to say that any of the fixtures in the Championship are easy, but they're against Swansea, Huddersfield, now another tough game against West Brom. So you'd like to think if we can just keep the momentum up somehow, avoid defeat, go into the next two games and look at them and try and win those, is going to obviously help us. But yeah, I'd absolutely take a point now.
I sort of echo that sentiment. I would, if you offer me a point right now, I would take it. For the benefit of, say, having a very close friend who supports Norwich, I am going to have to put my neck on the line and say that the Lions will win the game. I'll go with a gritted teeth 2-1, but I would take a point if it was offered to me right now. I think the big thing for us from the last couple of games is if the fitness of George Saville. I really think if Sav is back in the squad and back in the first team, that's going to give everyone such a boost. If he's not, you can kind of sense that the supporters will think the midfield didn't quite work against Luton. And I think based on obviously what Adam said, them having sort of quality in the midfield area, that could be a sort of a potential danger sign for us. But if Saville is in there, he'll be up for a scrap, and he'll be up for the challenge against obviously some very good players on Saturday. That's kind of it for the Inside Man show this evening. Adam, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for giving up your time to talk to us about all things Norwich. I will wish you good luck for Saturday. Don't really mean it, but I have to be polite. I'm sure it'll be a good game, and I don't know if you've been to the Den previously, but I hope you enjoy the game on Saturday to a certain extent. My camera's going all funny. Sorry, guys. Mickey's going to love that in the edit. Ben, as always, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very much for giving your thoughts from a Mill point of view, and I hope the Norwich fans, if they listen to this, will enjoy what you've had to say.
Thanks, mate. At least you've listened to me tonight, and Mickey hasn't been able to mute me, so it's nice to be able to get my opinion out.
Yeah, we're never going to let him hear the end of that.
Absolutely not.
As I say, this has been the Inside Man with Adam from the Pinkun paper, obviously covering all things Norwich. Anybody listening to the show, thank you very much for tuning in. This will go out as a podcast, I believe, the earliest hours of tomorrow, which is Friday. It will also go out on Spotify and YouTube later on in the day, so you can catch it on all the usual channels. If you like what you hear or you want to get involved, feel free to follow all the social media accounts, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, at that Millwall Pod. We're more than happy to get new guests on the show. Or if you're an opposition fan that perhaps would like to get involved with one of these Inside Man, then feel free to contact us and we'll get you on the show. As I say, big game for the Lions on Saturday. The might of Norwich City travelling to the Den should be a sold-out crowd, which will always add to the atmosphere. From Adam's point of view, I'm sure he's hoping for a Canary win. From mine and Ben, we're hoping for a Lions win, but I'm sure it'd be a good game between two sides going for the top six. This has been That Millwall podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode.